that we could place on how many of these lots could actually be functioning off of this community well? Instead of saying that, yes, all 50 of them can be using this community well, is there, like, could we put a limit to like 7 or 8 or something like this that could be hooked up to this community well?
If there's a question in there for me, which I assume there is,
Something like this.
that's exactly what we've done.
Okay,
The state,
yeah, I see a note about
the
a phase
DEC
one.
said
How many
that
lots are in
certain number
phase
of lots is what this well is suitable for. That's what the DEC said. So that's why we came back and said, okay, that's how many lots we'll do with this first phase.
Okay,
So that's how that came about.
okay.
Was that number
Interesting.
35? I thought I'd read that somewhere, Mr.
Right,
Hanson.
I did too, and I was trying to find it.
35 homes. So question I have for you, Mr. Hanson. So it sounds like the whole crux of the matter ended up being that the city of Palmer didn't get the parts for their booster station. And so there's a feed problem for what was originally presented to the Platting Board on our first meeting. So,
I didn't follow that, what you said, a
all
fee
right, so
problem?
that Palmer didn't get the parts that they needed for this booster station. And the original platting, what it was originally presented to us back in April, was suggesting the city water. Does Palmer have an idea or a generalization of when those parts might become available?
They do. As I said, within your packet, Jude Billifer is the head of the Public Works Department in the city of Palmer. And with that letter, he said that they expect this to be fully online next summer.
Mr. Hanson, did I hear you correct? You mentioned a letter from the Palmer Public Works. And when did you say they expected that online?
Summer of 2025.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I thought I heard you say next month, and I said, wait a minute, I'm not seeing that, so. Not only my eyesight bad, my hearing's bad also, so thank you, Craig.
One other question for you. So, so the pipe's already in the ground. Are these hydrants going to be fed by this? Do you have that information?
The hydrants will not be fed by the community well. They will by the city of water, or the city of Palmer's water. Yeah, the requirement, I mean, just to elaborate, I suppose, upon that, hydrants are not required. In the city of Palmer, they're required. This is not in the city of Palmer. They had added them to this system because it would be on the city of Palmer's water system. And the city of Palmer, when they're doing subdivisions, they have hydrants. So that's why the hydrants are there. It's not because they have to have hydrants in that area.
I see a note here. It says phase 1, all lots are serviced by communal water system until such time that City of Palmer water is available. Upon availability of City of Palmer water, all lots will be serviced by City of Palmer water. No individual water supply systems are allowed on any lot. And what the developer is asking us to do is to approve a private water well.
No, I'm afraid that's not exactly a correct reading of it. It's not a private water well, first of all. It's a community water well. And that's not the intent of what that note there is. It's just to say that we're never going to have private wells on that other than, this community well and then the city of Palmer.
Ms. Krieger, did that answer your question?
Yes.
Are there other questions for Mr. Hanson from the board at this time? Apparently, no more questions. Thank you, Mr. Hanson.
Thank you.
Ma'am, I have closed public testimony, I'm sorry. I would at this time, to put this on the floor for discussion, we will need a motion to approve. I'm looking to the board to make that motion.
I'll make that motion. I move to approve the preliminary master plan of Bogart Colonial, Section 36, Township 18 North, Range 01 East, Seward Meridian, Alaska, contingent on 12 staff findings of fact and 20 staff recommendations.
Thank you, Mr. Cohn. Do we have a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you, Mrs. McBride. Okay, excuse me, we do have a motion on the floor. It's been made and seconded. Now, among the board, we're open for discussion on this before we go to a vote. Ms. Traxler?
What about a timeline? I mean, they're making a very good point that this was approved based on it being hooked up to Palmer Water, and it's not. I'm not sure if they actually got with the parts that they need presently to say, yes, it's going to be done summer of next year. I just think there needs to be some protection for people, you know, that are concerned about their water, you know. I don't think, you know, what if it takes them 5 years to do it for whatever reason? I mean, should we say, hey, it needs to be done by September of 2025, like Palmer's anticipating? I don't know.
I think those are all valid points. More discussion among the board members.
I concur with the understanding, you know, to leave it open-ended would be something. I mean, if it's something where, if it can be date-centric and then a 30-day extension or what have you, so that there's a tracking of actual parts, might be reasonable.
Sandra, I see you shaking your head. Do you have some comments on this? Mr. Wagner, I see you'd like to weigh in, so I'll recognize the Platting Officer Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Fred Wagner, Platting Officer for the Borough. The question of water is, it's not something that our code fully contemplates. We're not the authority in charge of water. That would be the ADEC, and they have approved the well for up to 35 lots at this time. So I really, from the borough side of this, we don't really have, I don't know that there's a lot of, we don't have much control over the situation. You know, we don't require that any lot is able to have water. There's nothing in our code that says you can get water through a well or this. The only thing we contemplate is that we will let sizes be reduced if you have water, and it kind of rests there. So I agree all of the concerns are very valid concerns. I don't know that the questions asked by some members of the public can be answered by the borough, or that they're more ADEC questions. I do think that there are several things to consider. I mean, we're talking about, it's approved for 35 lots, but are they actually going to build 35 houses between now and at the time we anticipate getting water? We have received both from the city of Palmer, or from the city of Palmer, that they fully anticipate that this part will be coming through. I do know that this project is actually back funded by the borough. We're paying for the wells and the parts, and they just weren't available at the time. I think that our code allows for what the developer is requesting. I get that there's a lot of questions about what we could get done, and then the overall effect. I think there are possibly some things the board could do. I don't know how the developer would feel about it. I think that Ms. Krieger's question about can we make a different number is a valid question. I guess a question for the developer is how many houses do you anticipate being able to build in the time period that we're talking about? So maybe instead of saying all 35 could go on, and in case it is delayed, we don't have all of them drawing on the well at the same time. Maybe something more reasonable, could be, I imagine you could make a condition of approval that stated X number of lots can access this and until hookup. Platting staff started with just the request as we received it of phase one. And that's because we're looking at approving of plat for phase one. And we were in the final review process when we discovered that this had happened. We kind of missed a point. It was brought to us earlier, but we didn't catch that there was a community well. We just saw that they were changing the phase lines, and we didn't really put a lot into that because that's what we call a minor plat alteration. That wouldn't come back before the board and the public if they wanted to just change where they were going to put their development lines at. This obviously had to come back because the public needs to be made aware. We feel that the borough does support the request because it meets our code. I fully understand the questions that you've asked and put forth, but like I said, how many houses will they get done in that time span? I don't know that it wouldn't be acceptable, and we might be able to get concurrence from the developer on a number less than what we are looking at approving right now, but that's about all I really have on it. I don't know that we have a lot of say in what ADC approve a well for. It's kind of outside. They don't talk to us. I mean, we didn't know it was happening. I mean, that's how these processes work through ADEC. Septic systems get approved. We don't know that they're there or not. That's not something that we track. It's something we're not a part of that process. So, that being said, that was what I was thinking about. You asked.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. Any more questions or any more comments?
May I ask how many houses are in phase one? I see 4 phases here. How many are planned in phase one?
Mr. Anson, I know we released you, but you know that number?
Count them on the screen.
I know.
35, okay.
And like I said, they approved it to that extent.
Okay.
What would be appropriate? Question of what's appropriate is much more vague, I think, it's a own thing. I don't know what the answer is.
Okay, thank you, sir. You know, this was a tough case when it came before us in May. This is probably one of the, at least since I've been on Platting Board, which has not been that long, this is one of the highest density cases, and I think that was a big concern from back in May is high density and septic, and now we're looking at a lot of questions about aquifer, you know, and I think all of us worry about our aquifer. I live in a very area that's growing very fast, and I worry about my aquifer, although as long as the Connect River's running, I'm going to have water. So, but I don't know about this area. And those are things that we don't have anything to judge it, make a decision on because there's nothing in code about that. So this for me is a really tough decision as it was the first time around. Sandra, I see you looking. You have some more comments? Well, you're thinking, put your thoughts in words.
My thoughts are, I believe in the ADEC, and if they say 35 lots are serviceable, then who am I to argue with them?
Well, here's my only concerns about that. You know, several people or a few people brought up, have there been studies done? And we have seen none. So here's unintended consequences. What if we do approve this and we do affect the aquifer? This is a 35 homes is a potential to use an awful lot of water. And like I said, I personally don't feel like I have grounds to deny this, but I do have some concerns. And if we're wrong, what are the implications? Are you satisfied we discussed this to the board members, and are we ready to make a decision? A motion has been brought forth and seconded. We have had board comments on this. I think that if we'd like to do an electronic vote, this may or may not be very transparent. So, Madam Clerk, would you prepare for a vote? I'm going to call for the question. Shall we approve the the request is brought forth.
Yes, go ahead and place your vote when you're ready.
Are all your votes recorded?
Okay, we'll display.
Technology is wonderful when it works. It's a mystery when it
Older
doesn't.
technology. This thing's older than most of us in this room. I don't know what, it's not, it's not displaying the results. We may have to go to a voice vote.
Okay, let's not waste any more time. Let's go to a voice vote on this. I will start down at my left. Mr. Goodman and Madam Clerk, will you record the votes? Mr. Goodman, yea or nay?
Yay.
Mr. Burtz?
Yay.
Ms. Krieger?
No. Nay.
In line, I will vote yea. And Mr. Cohn?
Yes.
Yay.
Repeat, please.
Yay.
Yea. And Ms. Trexler?
Yay.
And the tally, Madam Clerk?
We have 6 in favor, yay, 1 no.
Okay. The motion,
It
oh,
would be appropriate to ask Ms. Krieger if she would like to. state why she
Reconsider?
voted no.
okay. Would you like to state your objection, Ms. Krieger?
My objection is that, yes, the DEC approves that this will service 35 lots, but I do not feel that that takes into account that it's the aquifer being bled uphill from the rest of these people. I just don't. Does that include, do those 35 lots, wells, include the wells downhill? How far of a reach does that affect? I'm not sure if I'm saying this right, but you know, is there a circle that states this will feed 35 lots here? But how many lots downhill? And we see this all the time. People's wells going dry downhill from these community well projects. We've seen it over and over and over again the last 10, 15 years. That's why.
Thank you for that comment. I can't say I disagree, but oh, I'm sorry. We will move on. The request for South Village's master plan adjustment was approved, not unanimously, but it was approved by this board. So we'll move on to our next case. And I thank you all for coming and testifying. Okay, the next case on the agenda under public hearings, Rio's Refuge. The request is to create 8 parcels from Parcel 1 and Parcel 4, MSB waiver 82-91-PWM, recorded as 82-142 Whiskey, and lot number 1, Radford's Retreat, plat number 2006-200, to be known as Rio's Refuge, containing 21.36 acres, more or less. The parcel is located directly east of West Dane Court and west of Stein Drive, south of West North Rose Lane, west of South Foothills Boulevard, and directly north and west of West Lone Duck Trail. Tax ID 17 November 02 Whiskey 23 Delta 006 Delta 006, or excuse me, Delta 009, and tax ID 5966000 Lima 001, within Section 23, Township 17 North, Range 02 West, Seward Meridian, Alaska, in the Connect Fairview Community Council, Assembly District 5. Petitioner owner is Kent Larson and Stephen Radford. Staff is Natasha Handale. Case number is 24107. To the board, I will read ex parte. Do you or any member of your immediate family have a substantial financial interest in any property affected by this decision, or will you recognize a foreseeable profit as a result of this decision? Seeing and hearing none. To the board, have you received or otherwise engaged in ex parte contact with the applicant, other parties interested in the application, or members of the public concerning the application or issues presented in this application, either before the application or during any period of time the matter is submitted for decision outside of the public process? Seeing and hearing none. And finally, are you able to make an impartial decision? That is affirmative. Madam Clerk, could we have the readings?
Yes, there was 201 public notices mailed October 15th, 2024.
Thank you, ma'am. And may we have the staff report? Somebody filling in for Mrs. Heindale? Chris, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chris Curlin, plating staff. The petitioner has requested a continuance to December 19th, 2024. This would allow the petitioners and their representative to attend. Staff recommends the board grant the continuance to December 19th, 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Curlin. And is the applicant's representative present? Seeing none, I would like to open public testimony on Rio's Refuge. If there's anyone in the house who would like to testify, please come forward, state your name, sign the register. Madam Clerk, anyone online? If you're online, would like to testify on Rio's Refuge, please press *3. No, nobody online. Okay. So seeing no one's come forward, we'll close public testimony. We've had the staff report. I would entertain a motion from the board.
I move to approve the continuance to December 19th, 2024 of the preliminary master plan of Rio Refuge, Section 23, Township 17 North, Range 02 West, Seward Meridian, Alaska.
Thank you, Mr. Cohen. Do I have a second?
I second.
Mr. Axler, thank you. Is there any discussion on the postponement? Is there any opposition? Seeing and hearing none, postponed unanimously. Okay, the next case before us is Cypress Hill. The request is to create 4 lots from lots 1 and 2, Block 10, excuse me, Mission Hills Phase 2, plat number 84-124, and Tract A, Mission Hills North Phase 1, plat number 2008-24, to be known as Cypress Hill, containing 8.5 acres more or less. The subject property is located west of North Church Road, east of North Stanley Road, and directly north of North Sam Sneed Loop and North Walter Hagen Circle. Tax IDs number 2767 Bravo 01 Lima 001 / Lima 002 and 6790000 Tango 00 Alpha. This is within Section 06, Township 17 North, Range 01 West, Seward Meridian, Alaska, in the city of Wasilla and Assembly District Number 4. Petitioner owner is Patrick and Kimberly Campbell, and staff is Natasha Heindale. Case number 2024-110. To the board. Do you or any member of your immediate family have a substantial interest, financial interest in any property affected by this decision, or will you recognize a foreseeable profit as a result of this decision? Seeing and hearing none, to the board, have you received or otherwise engaged in ex parte contact with the applicant or other parties interested in the application or members of the public concerning the application or issues presented in this application, either before the application or during any period of time the matter is submitted for decision outside of the public process provided by the borough? Seeing and hearing none, are you able to be impartial in this decision? And that's affirmative from board members. Madam Clerk, may we have the number of mailings?
Yes, there were 178 public notices mailed October 15th, 2024.
Thank you, ma'am. And may we have the staff report?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chris Curlin, Platting Staff. The proposed subdivision is creating 4 lots ranging in size from .93 to 4.07 acres. Proposed lots 1 through 3 will take access from North Sam Sneed Loop. Petitioner is seeking a variance from MSB 4320-140 physical access for access to Lot 4 via North Walter Hagen Circle. Both roads are owned and maintained by the City of Wasilla. The petitioner has submitted a variance application pursuant to MSB 431575 with supporting criteria A through C answered. It is found at Exhibit B. The request is from MSB 4320-140 physical access and MSB 4320-320 frontage. A geotechnical report was submitted pursuant to MSB 4320-281A. Paul Pinard, professional engineer. It's available at Exhibit C, stating that in specifically addressing the borough's usable area requirements, each lot, including the already developed Lot 2 and 3, provide at least 10,000 square foot of usable area for wastewater disposal, septic system, and another 10,000 square feet for a buildable site. Comments received from agencies and utilities had no objections. The City of Wasilla commented that they have been discussing the driveway with the owner. One public comment was received from Jason Atkins objecting to the proposal. The plat of Cypress Hills is consistent with state statutes and borough code. A soils report was submitted. Legal and physical access will exist if the variance is approved. As-built survey and topographic information were submitted. The petitioner has submitted a variance request to MSB 4320-140 physical access with supporting criteria A through C answered. There were no objections received from borough departments, outside agencies, or utilities at the time of the staff report. There are 2 recommendations for approval, one with the variance and one without the variance. The second recommendation has an error that, if used, needs to be edited out. Both are identical. We would have to take out the variance part of the second recommendation.
Mr. Curlin, would you repeat that? I didn't quite follow you on that last.
We have 2 recommendations for approval. The first is with a variance. The second is without a variance. There's an error. They both are identical. So if you go without the variance, we would need to not read that part and scratch it out.
One of the conditions of approval is in here and there on the with the variance or without variance.
Correct.
With?
With is the first one. The second one should be without.
Okay, I got you.
It,
Just clarification there. Thank you, Mr. Curlin.
yes.
Is the staff's, or is the representative in-house today? If so, I'd invite them to come and address the board.
Good afternoon, board and staff members. I'm Scott Holm, Bush Construction Surveys. We seek the variances to develop Lot 4 further. Previously, it was Tract A. It's just a gravel pit. We're trying to improve it. We're following all the recommendations needed, and we've already got approval from City of Wasilla. If there's any further questions, just let me know.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thanks.
If there's any questions, we'll bring you back up later in the. So at this point in time, I'll open up public testimony on Cypress Hills. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the board on Cypress Hills? Still no one online, Madam Clerk? Okay. Seeing no one come forward, we will close public testimony. To the board, were there any questions for the representative? If not, there's no need to bring him back. Okay. Seeing no questions, I would entertain a motion. Keep in mind, we have two options. We can approve with or without the variance, this request. So I would entertain a motion from the board. Ms. Trexler?
With the variance, I move to approve preliminary plat of Cypress Hills and the variance from Matsu Borough 4320-12140 physical access, Section 6, Township 17, Range 01 West, Seward Meridian, Alaska, contingent on staff recommendations 136. And where's the findings of fact? And 6 findings of fact.
Thank you, ma'am. Do we have a second?
I second the motion.
Ms. McBride, thank you. We have a second. Discussion on the request for the Cypress Hills with approval with variance. Discussion among the board? Seeing none, are we ready to vote? Is there any objection to approving Cypress Hills with the variance request? Seeing and hearing no opposition, this is approved unanimously. We'll move on to the next case. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to our final public hearing for today. We do have some more business to take care of after that, but the final request for today, Wasilla Creek Commons, Phase Number 3. The request is to modify plat note number 3 to exclude lots 24 and 25, Block 2, and to eliminate the shared septic field easement on lots 24 and 25, Block 2, Wasilla Creek Commons, Phase Number 3, plat number 2012-63. The property is located west of South Trunk Road and south and east of East Palmer-Wasilla Highway, directly south of East Riparian Loop, tax ID number 7125 Bravo 02 Lima 024 / Lot L or Lima 025 within the southwest quarter section 03 Township 17 North, Range 01 East, Seward Meridian, Alaska, in the South Lakes Community Council area and in Assembly District Number 3. The petitioner owner is Northlit Homes, LLC. Staff is Matthew Goddard, case number 2024-116. To the board. Do you or any member of your immediate family have substantial financial interest in any property affected by this decision, or will you recognize a foreseeable profit as a result of this decision? Seeing and hearing none. To the board, have you received or otherwise engaged in ex parte contact with the applicant, other interested parties in the application, or members of the public concerning the application or issues presented in this application, either before the application or during any period of time the matter is under submission or submitted for decision outside of the public process? Seeing and hearing none. And finally, are you able to make an impartial decision? Affirmative from all parties. Madam Clerk, may we have the mailings?
Yes, there were 80 public notices mailed October 15th, 2024.
Thank you, ma'am. And may we have staff report, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Matthew Goddard, Platting Staff. The petitioner is requesting the modification of plat note number 3 and the elimination of the shared septic easement on lots 24 and 25, Block 2 of Wasilla Creek Commons Phase 3. Plat note number 3 currently reads that lots 22, 23, 24, and 25, block 2, and lots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, block 5, are served by community/shared septic systems. No individual septic system will be allowed on these lots. The requested modification will remove lots 24 and 25, block 2, from this note, allowing them each their own septic system. A geotechnical report was submitted pursuant to code. This is seen at Exhibit C. William Klebesaddle, registered professional engineer, notes that 2 test holes were dug to a depth of 12 feet. Groundwater was encountered at 8 feet. In light of Title 43-2281 of the Matanuska-Susitna Borough Code, all lots contain sufficient overall area. They have at least 10,000 square feet of usable building area and at least 10,000 contiguous square feet of usable septic area. The petitioner provided a petition to eliminate the sanitation easement, shared septic easement, with supporting signatures from the majority of the property owners in the Wasilla Creek Commons Phase 3 subdivision. This is seen at Exhibit D. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers notes that based on aerial imagery and Matanuska-Susitna Borough Wetlands Mapper information, it appears that there may be aquatic resources approximately in the southernmost fourth of lots 24 and 25. Department of Army authorization would be required if anyone proposes to perform any work, fill, or dredge in those areas. At the time the staff report was written, there was 1 objection from the public received in response to the notice of public hearing. After the report was written, we have received 2 comments, 1 with objection and 1 non-objection. The objections from the public were based upon concerns of the potential environmental impact and wanting to make the developer fix the issue as opposed to altering the current restrictions. The non-objection supports the modification as a shared septic system has the potential for conflict, and leaving vacant houses is not good for the local neighborhoods. In conclusion, the proposed plat note modification and shared septic easement elimination is consistent with state statutes and borough code. There were no objections received from any federal or state agencies, borough departments, or utilities. There were 2 comments with objections and 1 non-objection received from the public in response to the notice of public hearing. A soils report was submitted certifying that both lots have the required usable area, and staff recommends approval with 8 findings of fact and 5 recommendations for conditions of approval.
Thank you, Mr. Goddard. I would like to invite the applicant or applicant's representative to come forward and address the board at this time. Mr. Hanson, thank you. At this point in time, I will open the floor for public comment on Wasilla Creek Commons Phase Number 3. So if there's anyone in the audience that would like to address the board, please come forward, state your name and sign the register. Still no one online, Madam Clerk? Okay, and seeing no one in the audience to testify, I'll close public testimony on this portion. And Mr. Hanson, would you like to come forward, please?
Good afternoon, Craig Hansen, representing the petitioners. In this case, we've got a plat that was done back in 2010, about 14 years ago. At that point in time, when they did the engineering analysis on the 2 lots at hand, it appeared that there really wasn't sufficient area to put a septic on each lot. So what they did was they had on the plat a note that laid out an area where we'll say that those 2 lots have to share a septic system. Jump ahead 14 years to the present, the circumstances have changed, apparently. What's happened is they've gone in and found that they can indeed put a septic on each of these lots. Again, this isn't made up. This is something that the DEC regulates. Pioneer Engineering has certified that there is usable area for septic on each of those lots. Michael Erdman Engineering then has also designed the septics for each of these lots, and they've been constructed. Why it's changed? Couldn't tell you exactly, but I can tell you this, that the water table changes frequently. That's just the way it is. That stuff goes up and down. And the current state of the art with regards to determining whether or not an area is suitable for septic is not flawed. It's functioning, it's working well. So they would like to have this area that shows up on the plat as a community shared septic field easement just to be erased because there's no need for it. As we've showed, there, it's suitable for a septic now. That may not have been the case in 2010, but it is now. Its construction has already completed. The systems are functioning properly the way they're supposed to do. And there's no need for that easement to be in place at this point.
Are there any questions from the board for Mr. Hanson? So we don't know what changed. Something changed, and now they can have, okay. Yeah. 12 years.
12 years is what happened.
Okay. Any more questions for Mr. Hanson? Thank you, Craig.
Thank you.
To the board, I would entertain a motion for the request on Wasilla Creek's Common Phase 3 sanitary easement elimination. Ms. Trexler?
I move to approve the modification of plat note number 3 and the elimination of sanitary easement granted on lots 24 and 25, Block 2, Wasilla Creek Commons Phase 3, plat 2012, 63, Section 03, Township 17 North, Range 01 East, Seward Meridian, Alaska, contingent on staff recommendations 1 through 5 and 8 findings of fact.
Thank you, ma'am. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Ms. McBride, thank you. Okay, we have a motion on the floor to accept the sanitary easement elimination. Is there a discussion among the board members? Looks like we're ready to vote. Is there any objection to approving this plat as request or this easement elimination? Seeing and hearing none, it is approved unanimously. Okay, that is the last case we have on our agenda for today, but we do have one more item of business before we leave today to the planning board, and that is, did you all have a copy of the meeting schedule for 2025 before you? It was in your original packet. Does everybody have a copy? Carla, did you? Well, she didn't have a copy. Listen, I'll give you my copy. And there's some notes on it, so. Eric, did you have the? I did. Okay. Okay. Oh, that's right. You're the one. Let's say you all, Mr. Wagner.
Through the chair, thank you, Chairman, Mr. Fred Wagner, Platting Officer. We had discussed prior to the meeting, looking at this schedule and looking at the fact that the first meeting in 2026 would wind up on January 1st, and we had discussed whether what we should do, if we should pick a different date. I think the thing to do at this time, my advice would be to just cancel that meeting. If we get around to December of next year and it looks like we've got a large demand for cases, the Platting Board can always add a special meeting after the fact. This way, we're not trying to anticipate what the Platting Board may have to deal with January of year after next. At this point, I think that we've always got that option to add it. I was thinking about it because nobody wants to come in on the day after New Year's for a Platting Board hearing on a Friday. If we move it to the next week, then we're only 1 week before the next hearing, and it doesn't leave a lot of time to bring anything between the hearings. So I think that my advice would be to just cancel that first meeting due to holiday. But I will capitulate to your decision.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner.
Would that then be amendment?
Yeah, I think I would entertain amendment to approve the calendars as presented, and then we'll make the amendment to that and then approve it. I think that's the proper order. So do I have a motion to approve the 2025 calendar as presented?
I move to approve the calendar for 2025 as presented.
And a second.
I second.
Ms. McBride, thank you. So we have a motion approved in a second. Do we have discussion now as, now the important part, do we want to amend it?
I would propose an amendment to eliminate January 1st, 2026 from the calendar.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Brian, Mr. Goodman, thank you. Is there any discussion on the amendment? Any discussion on the amendment? I'm looking at you, Sandra. Okay,
The paper I have in front of me starts on February 6th, so I don't.
okay. Okay, you on board now? Okay, we have an amendment to the main motion. The amendment is to eliminate January 1st. Hearing and seeing no objection, we will eliminate the January 1st, 2026 meeting. Now back to the main motion to approve the calendar as amended. And is there any discussion on that? Is there any objection to approving the amended calendar for 2026? Mrs. McBride, you have a question? Okay, I saw you start to raise your hand, so, okay, so it is approved unanimously. And I believe we're down to comments. I'll start with, I always start with Mr. Wagner. We're going to give Madam Clerk the first go.
All right, so for November 21st, there are no Platting Board cases to be heard, as well as December 5th. So we will not have a Platting Board meeting November 21st or December 5th. The next one will be December 19th.
So December 19th will be our last meeting of the calendar year 2024.
That is correct, yes, it will be.
Cool. Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Wagner, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, what was the second date?
The second day, so December 19th is the last meeting for 2024.
Now, Mr. Wagner.
Well, you stole all my thunder. I have no comment. I appreciate everybody's work today. I know that we have, our purview is kind of narrow, but the subject is very wide, and it's affecting a lot of people, and it makes difficult choices. I think that I'm really proud to work with this board, and I think that everybody does a great job. And thank you for what you do. It's this is how our system of government works. Citizens participate, the public participates. Everybody walks away upset, and it worked fine. So thank you again, and we will see everybody. Well, I guess after Thanksgiving. I hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving, and we'll see you in December.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. From the board, closing comments, Michelle?
I have no comment.
Carla?
No comment.
And Eric?
I do have a general question. The shared sanitary easement, is that like a phenomenon here in the borough? Is there many of them, or?
This was something that was done in the 80s. We do not allow this any longer. This is not something we would approve or even consider for the obvious reasons. This isn't the first time. It probably won't be the last time that something like this comes to the Platting Board. It has probably happened. One of the things that happens here is, like I said earlier about the ADEC, we don't know what ADC approves and what they don't approve. We have, the ADC doesn't consider this plat when they approve. These lots could come in, any lot like this that has a shared septic, and they could put the septic system anywhere else. The ADEC does not look at that. They look at the conditions where the septic system is put, and not if there's contiguous other usable. They don't consider that. All they consider is this septic working? Is it put in good ground? Is it acceptable? Our conditions for a lot do not apply to to the DEC. They don't follow the same rules. They just have to make sure that the septic that is installed correctly with the right soils underneath it and everything else. So we had a case similar to this several years ago where the septic system had failed, and they put in a new one, got it all put in, and they couldn't sell the house because it hung a cloud on them, because there was a septic system inside the shared, and then there was one outside. So again, it turns into a bad situation. In that particular circumstance, the neighbor wouldn't help to maintain the septic system. So there was, the other person was on the hook to repair it all. And so, and there was literally septic coming out of the standpipes and leaking onto the ground. So this was a bad practice. We don't do it anymore. we would probably strongly oppose most community septics, even if they had a site on it, because of the past experience with subdivisions that had community septics. And when the owners actually found out the cost to operate a septic system, a community septic system, and there's federal and state regulations that govern these, and they've got to monitor them, and they've got to pay for it all the time, they left state, and we wound up on the hook for it. So we're not real big fans, though. I do see a time where this valley is going to have to get away from individual septic systems at some point. Our population density is getting such that we really are at risk, in my mind, and I've talked to a lot of people, of an eventual septic plume that will wind up affecting our aquifers, and that will be bad. Now, that's probably many decades away from being the case, but we don't know, because we haven't started a baseline study. This is something I love to get on my soapbox about. We need to get a basis so we can find out. I think we all agree water. We hear water here all the time, and we don't really contemplate it in our code, but we all know that we're mostly water. So water is pretty important to us. And the future of this valley will concentrate on how good we can keep our water. So that's something I feel will need to continue to go on. I'll get off my soapbox now, because I could go for a long time.
Well, no, I really do appreciate that. And as difficult as the situation was that we did vote on, I appreciate the dialogue, because I do believe it's important to the public. So I want to commend all staff and board members for that process. And everybody have a great Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Mr. Cohn. Brian?
Oh, I didn't realize I was on. So, yeah, I would agree that today, talking about clean water, Clean Water Acts and state and federal requirements regarding that matter are very important. And I would also agree with Mr. Wagner that as our population grows, the concept of contamination and or ground plumes being a problematic issue. Is there some way that in either planning or the borough can actually start assessing, having conversations with ADEC? I know I deal with them personally in my own practice, but communication on Clean Water Acts, I would think that department inside of the state would be a little bit more interested in talking with community platting as well as the borough regarding that issue. And I would also agree, I hope everyone has a happy Thanksgiving, and that we all become fat and happy more than we already are.
Thank you. Sid?
Well, I guess I do have great concerns about our water systems and our septic systems. I expressed that on this very one that we discussed today about this high density and all these septic systems going in, what they're going to do to the aquifer. But it's out of our jurisdiction really to rule on that. So I have to keep my mouth shut on it, I guess, pretty much. But I do think the state or this Matsu Borough could be in big trouble at some time down the road if we don't address this pretty quickly.
Thank you, Sid. Yeah, Mr. Wagner.
Thank you, Fred Wagner, Planning Officer. After hearing the comments, and we can present a resolution, the Platting Board could present a resolution to the Planning Commission and the Assembly expressing our concern with possible contamination and at least, to try to, I can work with some people in planning and kind of get the wording together, but to try to encourage the borough to at least engage the DEC or to start their own water quality program monitoring. Because like I said, it all starts with, we have to have a baseline before we can find out what kind of occurrence we're having. We don't know. And the longer it goes, the more that baseline's not as good as it could have been. So, if the Platting Board, it actually doesn't matter. I will bring a resolution, and if the Platting Board decides that it's a good resolution, then it'll pass and we'll move it on. So I think I will personally take on crafting us a resolution to advise the Assembly and the Planning Commission to work on this problem, to move it forward. I know that there are a lot of people on both of those boards, or there are people on both boards that are very concerned with this issue because we've sat down and had these talks before. They've seen me get up on the soapbox. So thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Sandra?
A comment, in addition to monitoring what these septic systems are doing, I was talking to someone about the car wrecker program. And my question was, after we remove these cars from these people's land for free, are we monitoring what sort of hazardous spills might have occurred over the years while this car is sitting in their lot? I think the borough does need to take a more active role in monitoring red zones or possible hazardous waste sites, to include septics, oil, gas, other things that shouldn't be seeping into the ground, because it will eventually affect our water tables.
Okay, thank you. Well, as my final comment, it seems like that of most of the cases that we hear, and most of the complaints have to do with well, septic, traffic, and schools. Well, we can't do a whole lot about traffic. We can't do a whole lot about schools. We have that's other jurisdiction. But I believe that we hear, especially this, as we're getting more and more high density, I'm seeing high density in my neighborhood, that it is appropriate that the borough address well and septic issues because it's coming at us fast. And so I would like to take Mr. Wagner up on his offer to draft a resolution from the Platting Board, address it to the Planning Department and the Mat-Su Borough Assembly, that they need to take a look and address some of these problems with wastewater and clean drinking water. So is the board in agreement that we should have Mr. Wagner draft that? It could be ready for our December 19th meeting will be the last meeting. That will, just so most of you know, that will be my last meeting on the Planning Board. I am retiring. And I'd like to have that, ready for the December meeting for us to vote on. So is that doable, Mr. Wagner?
It is.
All righty. So other than that, all of you have a happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you in December. Thank you. We are adjourned.